wound in a sacred geometry designed by Marco Rodin. Jamie Burdiff was able to produce a very simple ring-shaped toroidal transformer that he puts 2 amps of power and just 2 or 3 volts, 2.5 volts, and he's able to produce 200 amps with the same voltage in the core. That is 200, almost 100 times over unity. And you're going to actually see this. He's going to show you the electronic meters. I mean, if that isn't zero-point energy, I don't know what is. I mean, and these are the kind of parts, components that we're going to use in building this flying saucer if we can actually get the funding to do it. So we're looking at...
Hi everybody, this is Jamie Burdiff. This is a short video. I wanted to show some of the aspects of the latest coil that I have designed. As you can see, it's a very different toroidal coil than some of the commercial ones you might have or might be familiar with. This is a very specific design of mine where I incorporate different geometric shapes. Well, repeating geometric shapes in this coil. It's a bifilar coil. One of the circuits goes this way, the other circuit crosses over it in a specific angle. Okay, and I have several, and that does that several times here in the center. And it's a specific geometric pattern that I've created, and it goes along with the way I'm going to pulse the coil. It's a very specific way I'm going to pulse the coil or energize the coil, and it pertains to the mathematical geometry of the coil that I just finished putting together here, that I'm experimenting with today. What we got here to the right is an amp meter, and it's right now, as you can see, it's reading 0, so there is no energy going through the coil right now. There are my 4 leads coming off of my amplifier, my left and right, positive and negative. Okay, and the amplifier is then hooked up to my laptop, and the laptop is what I'm going to be using to pulse the coil with. It has the frequency and the very specific way that I'm going to pulse this coil that I've developed in the laptop. So and then this meter here is what I'm going to use to show you what the amplification of energy is around the poloidal diameter of this coil, which is this way. All right, so let's get started. Let me get this energized. Okay, so now we're drawing roughly 1.5 amps coming into the coil. Now let's see what we've got around the diameter. Looking at 212 amps. Okay, as you can see, let me show you the settings I got here. As you can see, I've got it set at 600 amps. It's a Fluke 32 meter, very good, high quality meter. It's set at 600 amps. All right, we're reading 212. Okay, so that's roughly what 116 or so times energy amplification. So we got 1.6 amps going in, and 210, 212 in the center of the coil. That's a very significant energy amplification. One of the other things I wanted to show you, let me get this out of the way. What I have here is a 1-inch neodymium sphere magnet. It's a grade N42, and when I stick it in the middle of the coil, it starts to spin, but not only spins, but it actually, the magnetic field holds it very tightly to the center of the coil. Okay, I can wobble it around a little bit, but it's essentially levitating in the center of the coil very powerfully. I can turn this thing around and it won't fall out. It's a very strong magnetic field. Alrighty, well, that was all I wanted to show. Thank you for watching.
I mean, that just blows my mind, because we're talking about the only difference between Jamie's toroidal ring-shaped coil and traditional transformers is the geometry in which he's wound it with. The sacred geometry in which he's wound it with. And he's also running his electric current. He purifies his current, which is a proprietary part of the invention. And he runs it counterclockwise, clockwise and counterclockwise, just like everything we've been looking at since last year and this year. And it's a very simple math formula. Volts times amps equals watts, and watts is the total energy burned. A lot of free energy devices or zero-point energy devices, you see an increase in voltage, which is just your flow potential or your electric potential energy or your actual flow of energy. And amperage is the amount of energy. So Jamie's volts stayed the same. His amps went up over 100 times. So if you do the math, volt times amps equals watts. Clearly, it is not. It is clearly producing a huge amount of energy. So I sent, Jamie's videos to Boyd Bushman, and I said, Jamie can put in, 2 amps and get 180 out, because he was up to 180 at that point. And he's been using my differentials and read my paper, and he's been able to make a lot of improvements. In fact, we're going to be using some better, more exotic materials for the core of his donut, very similar to the pendants I have at my table. How many people have either worn or seen the pendants where you see your body electricity goes into the coil, it's toroidal, and you wear it. It's just using your body electricity, and there's a huge increase in energy. I'll show you a little schematic of that in a few minutes. So the point is, it's the geometry in which the energy flows which causes the huge increase in energy, massive increase of energy. So if we look at this kind of technology, and we look at the blueprints we just showed you, it's fairly clear that different people are getting different pieces of the puzzle. I'm looking at what Boyd Bushman showed us at Lockheed Martin about the opposing magnetic fields. I'm looking at Jeff Willey's UFO, where I can see right through the middle, and I can see, because of the concave coils, I can recycle the energy instead of throwing it all away. And we're seeing the crop circle blueprints are giving us a clean, very, very clean schematic of how to make this work. And on that schematic, there were 2 ring-shaped coils like Jamie had on the top and the bottom. So this is that part. So I really believe we're there. We're really there. We can build it. All we need is somebody who loves flying, who loves to go into the air, like Richard Branson, or somebody who wants to send civilians into space to do this. It's not that expensive. It's not billions of dollars or anything like that, or even hundreds of millions. And so we can actually do this. Now, last year, I opened up my lecture with my discovery on differentials, the hidden harmonic codes of the universe. And I told you what zero-point energy really means. What does it mean? It means that in the void of space, at a temperature of absolute 0, which is actually colder than space itself. Space is minus 273 degrees Kelvin, and then you go to absolute 0, which is down in the minus 400 range. So at that level, with absolutely no temperature, it was believed by Einstein and his colleagues that if there's no temperature, there's no energy in this absolute 0 place in the universe. Because most energy formulas convert either mass and heat into motion, or electromagnetism, which is also heat, into energy. So if there's no heat, there can't be any energy. And Einstein and Max Planck fought with each other for about 10 years, and eventually Einstein agreed the void of space was supercharged with energy at the 0-point level. And at the 0-point level, there are very, very high frequency fluctuations. So high in frequency that it's literally beyond the highest frequency energy domains we currently understand today. See, basically, if we look at radio waves, say maybe oscillating at a diameter this big, right, the longer the orbit of the wave, the lower the amount of energy it contains. And then by the time you get to red, the color red, you might be here, and then blue here. You see what I'm saying? The higher the frequency of the oscillation of the wave, there's more energy there. So a blue photon, blue light, has more energy in it than red, and red has more energy than radio waves and microwaves. And then you eventually get to ultraviolet, which has more energy than blue and violet, and then you eventually get to X-rays and gamma rays. And gamma rays have, and 10-second gamma ray bursts will release more energy than our sun will in its multi-billion-year lifetime. So when you're talking about the zero-point field, you eventually reach places beyond the gamma ray spectrum. How many people here saw my part 1 of quantum communication that was shown at the film festival here? William Tiller at Stanford proposes that subtle energy, and subtle is really not the right word in my opinion, because it's not weak and subtle, vibrates higher in frequency than the gamma ray spectrum. Consciousness does. That means if you convert that through a very simple formula in Einstein, converting energy back into mass, the subtle energy force in the universe is more powerful than a 10-second gamma ray burst. It's more powerful than our sun's entire lifetime of solar energy. And this force can actually be accessed by the power of the mind itself. And then I told you how differentials work, how you need differentials, harmonic differentials, to pull energy out of the zero-point field and bring it into our space. Imagine a sunny day in Arizona and there's no wind. and it's 100 degrees outside, and all of a sudden a cloud comes over and cools